Naked and Afraid is known as one of Discovery Channel's most brutal reality shows, but you might not be surprised to learn that the reality show can be more fiction than fact. Naked and Afraid contestant Blair Braverman wrote an extensive, in-depth story about her time on the show for Outside, which included some behind-the-scenes secrets. While both she and her husband were contestants, he was sent to Honduras and she endured the hostile heat of South Africa. She claimed to know beforehand where she was going and was able to study up on the dangerous animals and poisonous plants local to the region. But when it came time to film her first foray into the wilderness, as well as meeting her partner for the next 3 weeks, Braverman said neither happened precisely as they were depicted on the show. Her directions came from a member of the production team named Rachel, and Braverman claimed that what was expected of her was made very clear, stating, "I had to follow the script. 2 people remove their clothes, walk to a landmark, meet each other, and offer whatever joke or earnest greeting they've rehearsed. They find burlap bags, which disguise their microphone transmitters, and a map." Braverman also claimed that she was required to strip down twice to make sure the cameras got all the angles they needed. In an interview with the Fayetteville Observer, Naked and Afraid contestant Hakeem Isler shared his interesting take on the show. He said that it wasn't as off-the-wall and unnecessary as it might seem, citing friends and family who had gone through natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina and Sandy as real-world examples when survival skills actually come in handy. His partner, Phaedra Brothers, also spoke about working with him. She told Channel Guide that when it came time for her to choose her survival tool, she opted for a fire starter while hoping her partner would select a blade. Isler did, and it was one that he had made himself, with Brothers recollecting to Channel Guide, "The fact that my partner had invented the knife himself was impressive because he had taken the time to research what was needed to survive. So when I first saw the tool, I was very excited about it." Though Brothers thought Isler's knife was brilliant, she claimed that cameras didn't show it breaking just 4 days into their 21-day ordeal. But after it was modified, Brothers said that it worked much better moving forward. One question that might be at the forefront of many viewers' minds is just how do women contestants deal with their periods during the 21 days they're out in the wild? When people spoke with former contestants Stacey Lee Osario and Alyssa Ballesteros, Osario claimed, "The show does allow us to have tampons. It's not only a sanitary hazard, but it's a safety hazard because you don't want to attract predators."
I read somewhere that their periods attract bears. The bears can smell the menstruation.
Ballesteros went on to say that the issue of periods wasn't a large concern, and that cycles were often disrupted when contestants were dumped out in the middle of the wilderness. USC Fertility claims that there are a number of reasons that a regular monthly period might be skipped. Chief among those reasons include extreme exercise, situations that result in the release of stress hormones, and starvation-level diets, which can all just put a temporary stop to periods. When Phaedra Brothers sat down to speak with Channel Guide about her experience on Naked and Afraid, she came with allegations against the series. The episode featuring her and her partner Hakeem Isler saw her getting incredibly sick, which the series attributed to Brothers drinking bad water. But Brothers claims that what was shown wasn't even close to what actually happened. According to her, the luggage she'd filled with food for the trip to the Himalayan mountains was lost, and one of the crew members made her a meal of chicken curry. Within hours, she informed the crew that she was suffering from food poisoning, vomiting, diarrhea, and dehydration. However, she was told to carry on with the schedule as planned. Brothers said that it wasn't a matter of poor editing or a misunderstanding, but blatant misrepresentation. She also claimed that when she protested, Discovery made it clear that they were sticking to their version of events, saying in her interview, "They said that if I said anything other than the storyline they picked, they would delete my comments. They decide the storyline, but in that particular incident, I think they thought it would be a better, more dramatic story, but it wasn't the truth." When 2 of the producers of Naked and Afraid spoke with Reality Blurred, they stressed the effort that's made in telling a truthful story, but they also confirmed that there are times when the crew steps in and influences events. Some of it can be completely understandable. Executive producer Steve Rankin confirmed that contestants have emergency radio equipment, walkie-talkies, and whistles. While Rankin says that one of their most important rules is to interfere as little as possible, there are times when they have to get involved, and not just when there's a medical emergency.
We have a fire starter. We carry it in our field kit all the time. You can have this, you can have fire in 10 minutes.
When the time comes for contestants to head to the extraction point, Rankin claims if contestants go off track during that walk, they might just have a little nudge from the producers. Supervising producer Matilda Bittner claims that that doesn't happen often, but when it does, she'll sometimes step in for a pep talk, saying to Reality Blurred, "If you lose your mental strength or your motivation, it's over. When they're having these lows, when they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, remind them why they're there, what they signed up for, and that they have it in them." In an extensive blog post, Naked and Afraid contestant Honora Bowen detailed her time on the show, claiming that she was told to start the anti-malaria medication Malarone before getting on a plane to Brazil. She detailed her severe side effects, which included increased sensitivity to light, mood swings, nightmares, nausea, and dizziness. She went on to say that her partner Matt wasn't taking Malarone, so he wasn't dealing with similar debilitating side effects. Bowen claimed that he was allowed to keep taking his prescription for Adderall, but that wasn't the case for her. Bowen went as far as to take a polygraph test, during which she said she was forbidden from taking her prescription kidney medication. Bowen added that she was told she could stop taking Malarone as long as she was reported saying that she was stopping the medication of her own free will. She allegedly declined, writing on her blog, "I do see an obvious gross oversight that my partner was never told to take Malarone while I was." Bowen claims that the side effects she suffered led to some of the conflicts between her and her partner. According to what Honora Bowen has written on her blog, Naked and Afraid was more scripted than audiences might think. She wrote that she had shown up with several knives and a water filter, but the production team got the final say over what she was going to bring. When Bowen was asked if she would be open to taking something that would serve as a fire starter, she wrote, "I agreed and said that my father had recommended a magnifying glass. The producers loved this concept, so they sent a production assistant to town to find a magnifying glass." But Bowen claimed that she was regularly instructed to refer to it as her late father's magnifying glass, instead of one someone had bought at a store.
I'm gonna get this back to her, so I just want to grab it so she has something that she has a sentimental attachment to.
It was an incredibly hard lie to tell, with Bowen writing, "I was appeasing the producers by showing them what a good actor I was. This was a very emotionally unnerving act that actually affected me very deeply, as my father's death was so recent and I was still deeply mourning." Location is everything, but are Naked and Afraid contestants really in remote locations hundreds of miles from civilization? Not according to Honora Bowen, who claimed that they were actually so close to civilization that she was kept awake every night by the sound of a DJ holding a nearby block party. But this hasn't always been the case. In an area of Alabama that was used for a 2016 episode of Naked and Afraid, a woman named Lisa Theris became lost for nearly a month in 2017. Alabama.com spoke to Naked and Afraid producer Jim Morton, whose family owned the land where the episode was recorded. The area in which Theris disappeared was about 10 miles from Morton's land, and he doubted that she couldn't have found her way back, claiming, "Even out there in the middle of stuff, you can hear power saws, you can hear all kinds of things. You run into fences out there in the middle of the woods, and I mean, Alabama power is all over the place." When speaking of the show's contestants, Morton added, "They don't want to wander off, but if they wanted to, they wouldn't have to go far to find something that would lead them out." When Kim Shelton found herself in Costa Rica, there was no way she could have predicted she would get incredibly sick from eating a turtle. According to what she and her partner Shane Lewis told the Daily Mail, their issue wasn't so much with the food poisoning, but how their various medical emergencies were portrayed on the show. When Shelton was given actual food and IV drips, these weren't shown on the show. All that was featured was that she was sick and seemingly recovered. At the same time, the series depicted Lewis as exhausted and struggling, though no real reason was given.
Are you injured?
Not injured. I'm just hurt.
Lewis later revealed that he had been upset by how he was portrayed. Even when he broke 3 toes on the 4th day of the challenge, it wasn't even mentioned. He told the Daily Mail, "When I agreed to do the show, I said to the producers that if you're going to do a real raw show, I will do it. They said they wanted to show the reality and how difficult it was, but they gave it the Hollywood treatment." While it might seem like the naked half of Naked and Afraid would be the most intimidating part, the prospect of going 21 days only eating what you and your partner can forage, catch, and kill can be terrifying. Still, some contestants have alleged it wasn't exactly as desperate as it appeared. Honora Bowen claimed that producers told her where to find coconuts in a nearby lagoon, which became an invaluable food source. She later wrote on her blog, "I had to wonder how the producers knew, but it became obvious to me later as I repeatedly saw members of the crew with wet shorts." In an interview with Empty Lighthouse magazine, Bowen said that at one point she left camp and made her way to a medic's tent. There, she found some supplies, including emergency electrolytes, and hid them from producers back at her camp. She justified this as still being in the spirit of the show, saying, "It is still survival, you know. What are the rules of it?" When speaking with Reality Blurred, Steve Rankin and Matilda Bittner claimed that one of the most important things they needed to do as producers was to give the occasional pep talk. Rankin explained in his interview, "When they've had enough and they can't do it anymore and you see them break, it's tragic, it's heartbreaking. Every single one of them regrets it." But when Honora Bowen considered tapping out, she claims, "My episode's producer informed me that if I consciously tapped out, the story would be completely altered and would be, and I quote, that toad's story. He warned me about this." Bowen wrote on her blog that as the days went on and she started to lose control over her bodily functions, she knew something was gravely wrong.
No matter how much water we drink, we're going to maintain constant levels of dehydration.
So she faked falling unconscious, explaining, "I pretended to be basically catatonic. I let my body go limp because honestly, it was pretty close to that point anyways. I was pretty close to going into a coma for real." Bowen claims that when the medics were summoned and she was carried out on a stretcher, she was conscious the entire time but played unconscious for the camera. Ultimately, Bowen had lost around 18 pounds in 16 days and suffered long-term consequences from her time on the show.